afternoon, good morning, welcome to X Planet Live. My name is Lyle Miranda, and with me today,
Diogo.
yeah, also known as Yoshi.
That's right.
A nickname that you made up.
I didn't make it up. I got it in grade 7. A long time ago.
Whatever.
I don't know.
It's lies. When I first met this kid, he wouldn't tell me his real name.
You wouldn't let me put my nickname on the shirt that was given to me.
So Yoshi it is. Okay, so Yoshi, what are we going to be talking about today?
We'll be talking about the team events that have become very popular over the last maybe 3-4 years. Probably even longer, really.
Well, team events have been kicking around for quite a while.
But it really exploded, honestly, I feel like in the last 2 years, they just become everywhere.
I found it exploded after we did TGX, the team event.
That could be a coincidence, yeah.
Well, 100%. But I mean, like, before that, they happened.
Yeah, we always had one in Ottawa.
Always.
But
then we did it because we thought it was so cool.
Yeah.
At TGX, and then everyone left that event like, we do better and faster and stronger, and holy crap, it exploded across the province of Ontario.
Yeah,
like there
it
is
got massive.
A bajillion team events.
There's events from here to Sault Ste. Marie.
Yeah, and they range anywhere from 5-member teams to all the way now they're 8 teams.
8, 5, 3, 4.
Three's not so good. We'll talk about that why in my opinion in a second. But teams has become an extremely popular way of playing pretty much, well, 40K for sure.
Yep.
AOS as well. And there's other miniature games that do their own version of Worlds, I believe.
Yeah, I think so.
But those are the two that I'm aware of.
Yeah. No, it's definitely become the more, at least in my opinion, probably the more popular way to play the game competitively, at least.
Yeah, exactly.
Narratively, who knows? But
narratively?
I don't know.
There's a narrative Worlds event.
It's like one big team in narrative. They just play Apocalypse.
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. All right, so what are we going to talk about today? We're going to talk about the teams as a basic concept. So what the basic rules very, very quickly. There will be no graphics here, folks. I am not tech savvy. We're going to be holding up some fingers, and there it is. And then we're going to talk about the brief evolution of it, because it's definitely evolved and gotten more sophisticated over time. And then we're going to talk about our philosophies. Now, we haven't coordinated this.
Nope.
Diogo has his own way of approaching it. It might coincide with mine. We don't actually know. We want to keep it a surprise, is basically what it boils down to.
Never know.
So first off, teams. What is it? It's anywhere typically from 5 to 8 players. You could do 4. 4 would probably be the bare absolute minimum. 3 is just more like there's no nuance to it. There's like you guess one. So how does it work? So let's assume you're doing a 5-player team. All right, we're gonna hold up 5 fingers. My team versus Diogo's team.
That's right.
And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put up one of my members' lists face down. He's gonna put up one of his lists face down. Now I huddle with my team, and then we pick 2 lists and present them face down, and he presents 2 lists. These then get revealed, and it's actually these lists that go into the original pairing, or the original, we're gonna call it defender for right now. And I get to pick from one of these 2 for my matchup.
That's right.
So we pick one, so he picks that one, I pick this one. This team, or this one member of the team now gets put back to the mix, and these guys' pairings go off and play games. We do it again, and we keep on doing it again until we run out of players. Yeah, is basically it.
Yep.
Yeah.
There's a little bit like, you put them down, but also there's sometimes where, the tables for teams are also very different.
Yes.
In the terms of, like, normally when you go to an RTT or a GT or any major singles event, all the tables are the same. You guys all play on the same tables. The cool thing about teams, at least for the most part, is there's levels of terrain. Some are more open, some are more dense, and some are the medium. And depending on how you want to do your pairings and which armies you've taken and whatnot, it's really comes down to what you expect to be going down, and knowing if you can get to pick the table that you want to play on, right? Like a Tau army maybe doesn't want to go on the super heavy table. knowing that might help you. Same thing with combat armies. They
Right.
want the heavy tables, right?
They want heavy tables. Why they want heavy tables is they want to jump from cover to cover to cover to get the grips with the enemy.
Exactly.
If you're light table, they're just going to get shut up, and they really don't play in that theater very well. So that's why you'd want.
Yeah.
So typically defenders, they get penalized in the fact they get to eat a crap sandwich because the other opposing team is not going to cooperate. They're going to give you nothing but bad choices. So they're compensated by their being able to pick their table density.
Yep.
So they could actually trap people if they pair incorrectly. So there's an enormous amount of nuance.
Yeah, and there's perception too, right? What they might think is a bad matchup for me,
Yes.
I might not share the same opinion. Do they know
Yes.
that, and vice versa? No, and that's when it really comes down to when you get to the table, you'll figure it out,
Okay.
and you learn as you go along, right?
Exactly. All right, so the pairing process is done. In the early days of teams, everyone was a stallion, and they all hit
all
the
the best.
tables. There was really not a lot of research. Everything was done by gut, and it's like I look at you and go, yeah, I could take him, and and then we'd go, and then it didn't work out very well. Because I didn't know, or it was a coin flip. Because the one thing you got to remember when you're going to a Worlds event, especially at Worlds, actually, maybe not a local team event, but at Worlds especially, is the skill level
Oh, it's through the roof.
is through the roof, and everyone's there for a reason.
Yeah.
These aren't, bad players. These are all fantastic players, and now what we're trying to figure out is the degrees of separation between them.
That's the hard part.
Yeah, but that's very small degrees, right?
Yep.
So they go classically, and people would win kind of. So what happened is it'd be like coin flip. So if we're like of equal skill, and the pairing would have been it's like, well, I had this amazing army in 1998.
Sure.
Probably Elder was the best.
Yeah.
Almost assuredly.
Almost assuredly.
That was right in 1998, and I'm part of my Elder team, and I went into his Space Marines or whatever. I thought I was going to win, and I didn't. And I found like the teams would go back, and they'd be kind of disappointed in their games, right?
Yeah.
Or even if they won, they feel like, wow, we didn't really win by much, and we really should have.
Yeah, there's definitely an element of and it also comes down to where you play. Like a meta here and a meta there is very different. And sometimes you'll be like, well, over here, I crushed this army. Somewhere else, it might be the opposite because of player skill or player army building or whatever. And when it comes to it, it's like you get, it gets really interesting when you start to see it's like, oh, I've been smashing this army for a year, and now I'm seeing a whole different side of this. And that's where you're like, I've never seen this. And that's where, online you always say like, the meta's so crazy over there and over here, and vice versa. You see lists develop from one place to another. Yeah. So I always tell people, Mike, always look. You don't need to look just within your local meta. Try to look outside to get a real grasp of at least armies that you like. But
when we talk about meta, a lot of people toss that terminology around. Maybe some of you might not understand exactly what we're talking about. When you're talking about meta, you're talking about the game within the game. And the easiest way to understand what meta is looking at sports. Although every sports team plays that sport using the same rules, not every sports team plays that game the same way.
Exactly.
Some are more offensive, right? Some are more defensive.
Yep.
Some have just gigantic budgets where they can just build giant battle cruisers and just have both great offense and both defense. And the bank account is the thing that drives the team. And some have salary caps and so on and so forth. Anyway, it's the game within the game that we're talking about. And that's where things get really, really interesting.
Yeah.
So someone basically at the end of these team events, this pioneer, this beautiful mind, looked at trying to stack the odds in his team's favor. And he got to the conclusion that the problem is every team built their team with hammers. So the approach is we just got our best players and off we went. And he was always like, why doesn't that work? Because they would get to coin flips, because they would pair into a guy, and then it was like, but it wasn't this thing. It's like, we got the skills. What are we doing wrong?
Yeah. Some people would really think they have all the hammers and hope they just fight nails all the time. And then in turn, they end up fighting an anvil or another hammer, and you're like, oh, I didn't know this at all. And your strategy going into it changes completely.
Yes.
And now what you thought is not what you're going to get. And that, one person that happens to, okay, cool, it's not the end of the world. You have 7 other guys or 4 other guys that can make up for it. But now if everyone had the same mentality as you, that's when things started going crazy. And so the strategy behind it had to evolve.
Exactly. And now this is what we're talking about, the evolution of it.
Yeah.
Enter the concept of roles within a team. Positionals, for the lack of a better terminology, positionals. Now the terminology might change. Some might have a different concept of swords and shields, or hammers and defenders, or attackers, or whatever the heck it is. But it really all boils down to the same thing.
Yeah.
What the genius man thought of is actually, we're going to have members of our team that aren't there to win the game. They're there to lose by as little as possible. And if they win, holy crap, that's a huge bonus.
Yeah. You have people that you're designed to. You can still win the game, but you always keep it close. You make sure that their big boy hammers don't hammer you. They get blunted right away, which is what it turns into.
And that's what the roles are. Mm-hmm. That's the evolution of teams. So the concept of having a defender or a shield or whatever you want to call it, what that person figured out is, if I have a member on my team that looks at the meta and can negate it, my team has a distinct advantage when doing pairings.
That's right.
Because that player's army list is designed specifically to give up very little amount of points. And the player playing it hunts after points. Play style wise, it's completely different as well. So instead of moving around the board to try and score as many or to try and kill as many things as possible, actually what he does, he takes less risks and he just scores. And it's like, I don't need to win this game. I just need to not lose by a ton. And you're like, why wouldn't you go for the win? Because sometimes when you extend and it doesn't work out because dice have different ideas, you get smashed. And by extending, you actually lose more ground.
That's right.
Than you would have if you just played conservative. And you're like going, okay, so why is playing conservative good? And here's where the defender now clicks in. If that defender does his job well, what happens?
Well, if you go into the game and instead of you now getting 0 like it used to be before in a bad matchup, you're the defender. If you get 10 points, you're basically chipping away at, let's say for 8-man or for 8-man teams, you need 86 points to win. I just chipped away 10 points off of that, as opposed to before it was 0.
Exactly.
And you're making it harder you have 7 guys that have to now score 11 points each or whatever it is. Every point you make scrapes away from the win total, let's say. Right. And you still, even then, you still have a little bit 10-point gap in there for a tie, let's say, in the round. But you do shoot for a win for the most part. So now you're dramatically helping your team. And I say 10 points. Sometimes even 1 point has been the difference 100%. For a lot of people. And back in the day, if you went into a matchup and you're losing, your mentality was, well, I'm losing, so it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It drastically matters, and it teaches you a different way of approaching the game and playing.
Yeah.
And if you know you're losing and you start playing conservative, sometimes your opponent might themselves make mistakes and overextend, and you might be able to snag another couple points in differential, which, now instead of you losing, 19-1 or 20-0, you might only lose 15-5. That's huge. And it does take some getting used to. Being that defender role is it's hard sometimes because everybody wants to, shoot their guns and kill the stuff and move everywhere they want to. So you have to really hold back sometimes. But if you design your army within those confines that you're just getting points and doing this, it doesn't have the tools to do that anyway, so you don't really think about it. You're just like, I'm going to play this version. And some people that are not ready for that interaction have no idea. And you're just watching the clock run by like turn 1, 2.
So to be clear, this concept's hard to wrap your head around, right?
Yeah.
You're literally having a player that is designed to not lose by a lot. I've tried describing this to team members before, and they were just like, I don't understand what you're trying to say. It's because if that defender does his job, because he got paired into a hammer or a sword or an attacker, whatever you want to talk about, that guy's responsibility was to score 20 points, 18 points, 16 points bare minimum.
Yeah.
That was his job. And now when he only scored 15, 14,
12.
Oh my gosh, 12. That would be devastating.
Yeah, that's a win.
Yes, I lost, but he only beat me by this much.
Yeah.
And now my hammers got this pressure off. They don't have to, it gives them a lot more leeway.
Yeah, and it's not even necessarily sometimes with defenders because that's their role. You might, pairings isn't a perfect system, and I've never found a perfect way to do it.
Yeah.
You can be very good at it, but one person in there usually gets a matchup they don't like, or they're not very good into. And what's crazy is when you have, let's say I get put into a hammer and I am the nail. I'm not a defender. I just so happens that I got put into a matchup that I'm not good into, bad table, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
And you look at your matrix and you're like, oh man, this should be a 0 or a 1. And you come out of that game with a 5, 6, maybe even win, but more points than 0. That's a win. Because the team's like, we were expecting nothing, and you got us something.
Before we go into that, so we'll talk about roles in general, but then, of course, within the roles, there's more nuance, there's more onions. So, defenders. So he thought about the defender being a concept in teams. Ran it with success at an event. I don't know what team it was. But then understood that there were other positionals. The other positional was the attacker. And they were always set up to be in ideal situations. Meaning, during the pairing process that we were talking about with the fingers and playing rock, paper, scissors, their responsibility is to score as many points. Well, if we're trying to get them to score as many points as possible, we're going to try and put them in what we think, because we're now on the same team. Yeah. We're going to think that is the ideal situation. Yeah. So the attackers, generally speaking, are put into positions, either the table or their pairing or their matchup, so that they can most likely win, but not just win by a lot.
Win by a lot, yeah.
That is the concept of the hammer. And then there are the positionals that are mixed.
Yeah, usually I use the terminology champion. I know it sounds weird, but basically it's like an all-comers person. You can play into this, that, you'll get points here, points there. You're usually saved to the end of the pairings when all the crazy stuff has already happened. And I always call that the normal game. It's the game that you would just play at a normal singles event. And sometimes you get some interesting matchups, and some people just play mirrors all the time. Who knows? Because some teams run the same armies. But yeah, it's not to say that every team has the same composition in terms of attackers, defenders, and everything.
Correct.
Some teams might just have 2 defenders, all attackers. Some teams still go the old way, all attack, brute force. Sure, doesn't work, but
it does not.
It does not work. But
no, you get into just coin flips at that point, and they will lose long term.
Yeah,
they'll never crack. They'll never even be middle.
Yeah,
they just get smoked at the tables.
Yeah, the perception at equal skill levels. If you did that, you would lose, right? Yeah. Sometimes a very skilled team could have all attackers face a allegedly weaker team, and that system would work for them in that situation, but that would have worked regardless. Right. So.
So what I like to call the mix are my audibles. So if I was ever captaining a team, is my get out of jail free card. Sometimes we build teams with like defenders. So to give you an example, say we're doing a 5-person team, I'll have 2 defenders, 2 hammers, and then the 1 mix. Generally speaking, that's how I like to balance a 5-person team. The mix is the, oh no, my defenders are terrible, dropping into this team because of whatever the reason is. And I might even flip them as a defender. And then keep these guys. So even with the positional roles, just like defense on a hockey team, hey, that guy can score a goal too.
So you got it. Sometimes you have to change on the fly, and it makes it complicated. And some teams don't do this. Some teams do. We do make matrices of how we think we do into other matchups and other armies. Not players, just this faction. Blah 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 blah. And you sometimes look at it and you're like, wow, I have a lot of reds, or wow, I'm all green, or whatever. And suddenly your role in that scenario might change a little bit. You might not have to be a defender per se. You could be something else, or attacker, whatever. And it's fun in the sense of it changes round per round, but generically, you do these things to be consistent.
Yes.
And not just go into like...
When you say these things...
The pairings, how you design your lists, how you approach the pairing system, because like we were saying... The roles. Like we were saying before, pairings before, you almost didn't really even pay attention. You just kind of just went, okay, cool, I'm playing this, go over there. Now, like, it's a lot more interesting, and if you go to some of the 8-man teams, 5-man, any team event that they do it with, you will. It's like it honestly looks really cool. It's like you have your whole team right behind your one guy on his little laptop or whatever, and you have like half an hour. You guys discuss and strategize like how you're going to approach it. Because while this might be a good idea, like my defender into those 2 attackers, whatever, you could be like, you know what, take that one instead of that one because we want to leave this person. Because we have more people good into that than into this, right?
Oh my God.
We're talking.
It's kind of hard to follow, folks, but generally speaking, because as teams get larger, going from 5 to just even one more, just go to 6, for instance. All of a sudden, the permutations are huge. Guessing that what the other team is going to put down is part of the game of doing pairings. Like you look at the other opponent's teams, and you get these rosters. Usually, like Worlds is a month.
Worlds, I don't know, maybe a month or something like that.
Yeah, it's usually a month. So lots and lots of homework is done.
Oh, tons.
At local events, you might get it like a week ahead, 2 weeks ahead.
Yeah.
And then you start doing matrices. You bust out your Excel spreadsheet and you start putting the names down. And
some teams, and I've done this myself, will we look at specific teams. Let's say teams that we know typically do well, they're good players on them, and their lists are live. It wouldn't be a shock to anybody that a lot of people will like, hey, do you want to play this matchup? And they will use an exact copy of that army. Now we have the world of TTS, so we can do whatever we want. It's amazing.
Yeah.
We don't have to just own all these models. We can just play it online, and we will see. It's like, okay, I think it's this on my matrix or what I perceive it, and then we play. And then it's like, oh, okay, maybe change this, change here. There's so much homework, I call it, you can do before a team event now, where back then you didn't, and like you were saying before, it's somebody thought of this, and it just evolved from something so minuscule as doing pairings into just that alone is a game.
The ability to have a person on your team to be able to see the weaves, the threads that zip through and identify. It is such a valuable position, but like everything, every position matters. But the concept of having someone who's able to do pairings, whether that's your coach, your captain, a really talented player who doesn't really even have a specific role, it doesn't matter. That is a huge value add.
Oh, for sure.
To any team, because you can literally lose a round at an event due to bad pairings.
Yeah, every team always says they did outpaired their opponent most of the time. With like, if you paired a loss, you're like, oh, what happened here, right? But usually you pair a win, and then one of you is going to be wrong, probably, or you tie. Who knows?
Yeah.
We can touch on it after if you want to, but originally it was just 5-on-5, 8-on-8.
Yeah.
And more recently, at least more recently in local Worlds, they've pretty much always had this, but people having coaches has become probably the unbelievable importance. A coach is so valuable in just, the coach probably doesn't even do the pairings. Usually the captain does it, or the coach could help, whatever, or he could be the one doing it, doesn't matter.
Yep.
But while the games are actually happening, having that person is so important, and I'll quickly say like just a very generic why. Knowing how other games are going is super important, because if we're just playing and we don't have that guy walking around, I can't just get up and go to every table and vice versa.
You also can't do that.
You also can't do that. Well, you could get up and go look and see, you could visually see how the tables are
Yeah, you can do this.
You gotta be like, hey.
You can't like leave your table and
yeah,
go.
you gotta be like, I'll be back.
I'm gonna go scout out something.
Yeah, sometimes, don't get me wrong, in games you'll be like, your game is going pretty fast, you guys are having a good time. You're like, I'm just gonna go look at how other tables are doing. And some teams do that, don't have coaches, because you just want to know how good or bad it might be going. You can't give people advice or anything like that, but you can just look. No one's gonna stop you. But having someone on the team, like a coach, that can come by going, hey, look, some things on the other tables are not going as well. I know you had this as this. I'm gonna need you to go to this. Or what are you at right now? You're trending to this. Okay, keep on pace to that, or try to keep it there, whatever, right?
He gives you the snapshot of the moment.
Yeah, he gives you the basically information. He's like the coordinator. He's coordinating to make sure that's this is what we predicted the round would be like.
Yeah.
How close are we to this? How are we exceeding it, not exceeding it, whatever? And it is tremendously helpful. And that role was in local events, let's say, like over here. Only more recently, within maybe the last 2-3 years, do you start seeing some teams actually bring somebody? Because it's very hard.
3 years? I don't even think that. I think honestly, the last.
I've always, at least our team for the last 3 years, I've coached, but.
Okay, well, you guys were
but the way we built, I'll touch on it after how we decide to construct our team, just because of the way we like to do it. But it's it's very difficult to get, let's just say 5 people, but let's say 8, to wrangle 8 dudes together for a weekend. Very difficult. I'll tell you now. And it's not difficult because they don't want to play. Everybody wants to play, but we have lives, things get in the way, whatever. Now imagine trying to get a 9th person and telling them you're not going to play. You're just going to do the paperwork, I guess you could say. And,
administration.
The administrative work, which I hate. And it takes a very level-headed person to do that. And some people thrive in that role. They love it.
Yeah.
Right? Like our coach for the team that I'm on, he created an app on his phone that does a pairing matrix. I'm like, this is insane. I can't do that. So good thing you did it, because that's not what I would have drawn it on scribbly boards.
I absolutely love teams. It is, guys, I don't know if we've done a really great job in inspiring you to want to play teams, but I'm telling you, it is the absolute best way to play any miniature game ever.
Yeah.
It's just you're with your buddies, and there's a sub game,
Yeah.
so all the rules nerds get to have a fun,
Sure.
and then there's the game, and then after the game,
You go out with the team.
yeah,
There's a camaraderie. So I'm a big proponent of camaraderie. I love having a team of guys that I want to hang out with outside the game, inside the game.
Yeah.
There's some, let's say, hockey teams or soccer teams or whatever. They make these, I'm going to grab this superstar, this, blah, 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 and they don't like each other, or they don't play well with each other, whatever, and it just ends in shambles. I believe that if you get a group of guys that all like each other, win or lose, you just have a good time, because at the end of the day, you do just want to have a good time,
Yes.
win or lose.
Yes.
And the thing I found with playing singles for, I don't know how long anymore, almost 20 years, when you lose, it's just really, you just reflect to yourself. And some people get down on themselves when they lose and feel bad and whatever.
Yep.
And it's just you that gets to deal with that. Cool. In teams, while you may lose, and let's say you lost, but the other 7 guys on your team won, you guys won the round, it's very uplifting to you, because you have 7 dudes going, don't worry, man, we got your back, we did well, and the roles can be reversed. Maybe next round, you will be picking up the slack for someone else, and vice versa. And it's very a mentality of, we lose as a team, we win as a team.
Yes.
And I've had myself, and even other people I know, that they feel bad, I feel bad, I let the team down. It's they are always told, you have not let anyone down. If you feel like you let yourself down, sure, but you haven't let anyone on the team down. No one's gonna sit there and be like, you terrible, you suck. Maybe they'll do it jokingly, but whatever.
I do it to you.
Yeah, that's fine. But it's a very winning with a group of guys, or girl, or whoever.
Winning, losing.
Just
even.
winning, losing even is so much more fun when you're with a team.
Yeah.
Right? Because before it was you play as, I play for this team and this is my jersey, whatever. But now it's it's 8 of us. And, at least when I started going to team events, it was at the Canhammer Team Tournament. And they used to do it everywhere. But it used to have, what was it? You would get points for a team cheer. You get points for having all theme, matching jerseys.
Sombreros.
Yeah. Camaraderie, sportsmanship, you name it, everything.
The Adepticon approach to team.
Yeah, the most recent event that we were at was the stud teams, and we had, I didn't know this, thank God Riven found it out. They added little Easter eggs into the player pack of things you could do for sportsmanship. And I was like, what? And then he was telling us, and it was just ridiculous stuff, like yellow banana for something, I can't remember what it was.
That's funny.
And it's so interesting, when you play against somebody in singles and you guys have a great time, if you imagine having just 8 more of those people all together having exactly the same, you always find great opponents. I've never seen a team of just bad people nobody liked or whatever. That was never happens.
Yeah.
You'll still have players that maybe some people, oh man, that guy, hey, miserable to play, blah, blah, blah. But then you have 7 people to be like, you're a terrible person, don't do that again. Right? So he'll beat him up for you. But it's honestly become very refreshing, and to the point where a lot of people I know don't even want to play in singles they just think about teams. And I play both. I love playing, so I'll play singles, double, I don't care.
Yeah.
But I've found myself playing games, and even most recently on the stream I played with Simon,
Yeah.
we were playing a singles game.
Yes, you were, but you guys were counting it as a team game because it was a tie.
But it was when
You guys counted as a tie. Simon won it, but you counted as a tie.
subconsciously when I'm looking at the score, I'm like, that's a 10-10. I'm like, and you shouldn't think that way when you're playing singles. You're no, I should play for, because my brain goes to,
Sorry, what he's talking about, folks, because I don't think we've dove into that, is the differential. What that means is, let's just say you're playing a game and Diogo scores 80 points and I score 70. We would take that and look at a chart. So he actually won by 10 points. We look at what that means on the chart, and it gets converted into this differential score.
It's basically divided by 5.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Yeah, sure, fair enough.
Yeah.
So you'd be a what? You'd be 13?
No, 10. So either a 12-8 or 11-9. I don't remember.
12-8?
Yeah, because
So
if you only win by 5, it's a draw. A 6-point win is 11-9, and I think 5 more points than that, whatever. So
Gotcha.
yeah. So I think it would be 12-8. Yeah, and it's every 5 points of differential is 1 point one way, 1 point the other way.
Yeah.
And that's where we were saying before, the roles is like sometimes when you make certain plays, you really have to think in your head how many points it's gonna get me. And sometimes okay, net, it's like, I can make 10 points, that'll be 2 differential points. But if I don't do this and I mess it up or whatever, it's gonna cost me 10 points the other way.
Yeah.
Maybe I should just then do that and just stay here.
Right.
There's a lot of risk reward.
So why use differential? If this game has a score, why not just use the score? Do you know the answer to that?
I'm not a big fan of differential.
I am not a fan of differential for individuals.
For individuals, I hate differential. I think it's ridiculous. Terrible idea.
I don't really want to go into it. That's a whole other video in and of itself.
Doesn't make any sense.
Anyone who's ever suggested differentials in solo play, I got nothing polite to say, so I won't say it.
Okay, I'll say it this way: you can use differential for the scoring purposes, but a draw in solos is if our score is the same.
The exact same.
The exact same. Not.
But why do you use differential in teams?
I haven't even thought about it. I don't know why they do it.
Okay.
Maybe because it's easier to add up the points at the end.
Not so much actually. What it does is it unlocks armies that are not great to have a platform.
Yeah, okay.
So that what you just talked about before we got into it, right? Oh, do I do this? But I could lose 10 and maybe I don't. Mm-hmm. It's a completely different way of playing the game because ultimately every game that you play has maybe 2 to 3 top armies. Armies that are outside of the scope of the game, sure. S tier, whatever you kids want to say. Yeah. Everyone else are just blue collar guys that have to work for their wins, right? If teams were composed of nothing but these white collar armies that are just crazy amazing, right?
Yes.
They do. Well, you're about to say it right now. But one of the things you can't repeat in a team event are the same faction. So there's only ever one Marine player on a team. I don't think they are allowing differentiate. One Marine player, one Eldar player, so and so.
You can have one Grey Knights. They don't count as Marines apparently.
No, because they have the separate book.
Separate book, yeah.
So they count that as a separate army. Dark Angels is a separate army as well, I think. No, is it?
Same as they're like Codex compliant and all those ones, like Blood Angels, Dark Angels.
Because they're a supplement, not a. Got it.
Space Marines.
Yeah, fair enough.
And allied armies. So allied units, let's say, like multiple armies that can ally with assassins.
Yep.
If I'm playing Space Marines and I take an assassin, I have now taken up that book.
Yeah.
So no other, my knight player cannot take an assassin.
I thought he couldn't take the same assassin.
No, you cannot, because I've used the book.
Oh, in yours it's use the book.
It's just use the book.
In AOS it's War Scroll. So if someone is using a War Scroll for whatever reason, they can't use the War Scroll. So if I take this Regiment of Renown, that allows me to take these orcs in my ogre army, because I've taken that, someone else has those orcs, can't use that army because I've taken orcs.
Yeah.
Can't use any of those War Scrolls. So it becomes a balancing act. So you're only allowed, there are only so many good armies.
Yeah.
Right?
Now, provided fortunately for us now, the game is in such a nice balance.
We're gonna get into that. Yeah, you're so right.
Yeah,
you're so right.
Way back when, yes. The reason they introduced this only taking one codex is let's say Marines were the best army,
Absolutely.
You would just have the same list in different colors.
Yes.
Right? And they're like, no.
I don't think there's ever been a point in time where 40K has ever been as close in disparity. Between the high and the low, I think is less than 10%.
Yeah, it is. There is not a faction, excluding the new Imperium agents or whatever.
Yeah.
To me,
no one is
to me, they're
using
not.
that. They're not a real.
They're not a real faction.
No, they're an allied book.
Sorry to anybody that plays that. You're not a real faction. You weren't before, so you're not now.
Maybe at the Narrative Worlds event.
Yeah, play your what are they called? Oh man, I forgot the name of the army. Anyway, they're an army.
Death Watch.
Death Watch, yeah.
That's too soon.
Yeah, too soon. Sorry,
guys.
You were good at a point. Very short point. Yeah, right now, there's not one army I think that hasn't won, let's say, an event, maybe. I could be wrong. You can check out any of your local stats people.
AdMech, maybe. But I mean, AdMech is
really good. Hunter Cohort is probably the best one you can do. But every army, it sucks for me now because before I would just pick like one of the good armies and just play that a long time and it would be great.
Now meta chases. This is what this means. The chase the meta. That's chase. This guy right there.
I meta chase, but like just behind. Like I'll jump to an army that is not yet the best army, and then I stop playing it. It becomes the best. I have proof. I have receipts. All right. I have receipts. Okay. Demons are doing really good now. I'm not playing demons. Okay.
Right. But you stop playing.
I stopped playing them. Dark Angels are doing good. Just stop playing them. I'm playing Tal. They're not that good. Okay. They're pretty good.
All right. So anyway, 10th edition is such a fantastic spot, game mechanically.
Yes.
That teams becomes this amazing thing. So you could just win with any position really on a team. In any order. It's what's really important actually on a team as well are the faction specialists is what they're referred to as. So these guys could be playing armies that are not very good in the meta, but this guy or lady has shown that they're so good at the game that they actually maybe don't win events, but rank extremely well with army that shouldn't be performing at that level. Well, other teams notice that for sure, and that guy will get approached to be on a team because why? There's a gap on the team, and we rather have someone who's extremely knowledgeable with a faction. Like a real good example of that. I mean, we both know him. Ridvan. Ridvan's a faction specialist with
Drukhari.
Yeah. The Darkin.
What? It's catchy.
I guess. But I mean, he knows the army inside out. He knows the game extremely well, and then he can play into multiple armies because of that knowledge, and he can always lean back without having to reference his book or his phone or his.
It's something that I try to tell people. Like some people don't have the luxury of playing as much as we do. Definitely not as much as Riven gets to do because he does it for a living.
Right.
But it's when you play a faction that might be perceived as not that great, at a competitive level, if you play just a normal competitive event, you can leverage your skill, which Riven has a lot of it, of playing the mission, understanding his army and how his army interacts with other armies, where certain other people might not be able to do that. They just go by sheer force. So having that as like in your arsenal is super amazing.
Amazing.
And especially when the game becomes the game itself, not just the armies, but the missions and whatever, start to level the playing field. Skill expression just becomes through the roof, so you can really just outplay people. We had a similar person with Dustin on G-Serve.
I was just about to get into that, but let's go back to the original point I was making with differential. Those faction specialists using that points differential to convert points over, scraping those points as the role because they're like understand it's like I might lose this game, but I'm going to close and gain points for my team because every single point is important. That's where the differential really, really works in a team environment because I'm not rocking to a table as a solo Lionel and I'm going into a bad matchup, then getting my face kicked in, so it doesn't matter how well I do in that game. I'm rocking as a member of a 5 or an 8-person team, and yes, I might get my face kicked in, but now I am scraping for all the points. I'm taking less risks. I'm maneuvering the points differential allow you to maneuver in that environment, but it only, and I can't stress this enough, it only works as a team.
As a team, yeah.
Because once you get into solo play, folks, if you use differential in solo play, you could have a guy who loses majority of his games and win the tournament because he fluked off and got paired into a situation where he scored huge amounts. And you had a guy who won all his games but only won by a little bit.
Yeah.
And he lost the event. Differential in solo play.
Terrible.
Dumbest thing you could possibly do.
Do not do it.
Differential in team play, beautiful.
Yeah.
Like, just absolutely beautiful.
And don't get me wrong, if you like differential in solo play and that works for your local meta, I think you're wrong, but whatever floats your boat. Just, to each their own.
Fair enough. Who am I to poo-poo? I'm poo-pooing. I'm 100% poo-pooing.
I just won't play that event. I'll score it my own way. What's a scary thing about this, kind of touch on differential, is before, knowing how to play for the differential and how to express your skill and everything like that was really good, especially if you were the team of guys that already knew how to do that, and you played against other teams that weren't, they were relatively new to the team system. They would see, it would just, to them, it would just feel like another game where they're getting crushed maybe or whatever.
Yeah.
And what's scary now is, and scary in a good way, like most recently at the event we were at, and I was telling this to our guys on our team, even against a team that we were not in the winning category. Like, we came 5th, which is not bad, but I started to realize, I'm like, everyone is becoming very good. Like, every round we played, let it be to the best teams that were there or some of the not as good teams, let's say, to me, it looked like everybody was playing well. All the teams were taking the pairing seriously. Every player I played, at one point or another in the game, they were thinking about the differential. How do I score this? As opposed to before, where they were just like, how do I herp-a-derp this forward and whatever.
Herp-a-derp-a-derp.
They didn't care, right?
Yeah,
or they're losing, I'm losing, who cares, right? Now, it makes for, especially if you like playing competitively, it makes every game competitive, fun. And that's what, at least in a competitive standpoint, I want every game to be competitive and interesting.
Competitive is not a dirty word, not here on this channel, and nor should it be in your life. Competitive in a game is not blowouts. That's not competitive. Competitive in a game terms is close games.
Yeah.
And that's really what we're really talking about. When everyone hits a certain stage of skill and understanding how to do pairings and how to do, it makes games so close and so interesting.
It's scary in the sense of, like, now it's a lot more work, because before you do a pairing matrix, let's say for 3 or 4 teams out of 30,
right?
Presumably, and the team that you're going to play round 1 if you knew who it was. Now you got to do it for everybody, because you don't know, and there's so many new good players, dabbled everywhere. And you're like, oh man. So now you just have to, you should always assume everybody you're playing is an equal skill, if not better.
This segues perfectly into my next point. Yeah. So you're convinced teams are good. You want to do it. All right. There's a secret sauce to teams. And I know this is going to sound really, really old-fashioned and mystical.
Yeah.
And amorphic. But I'm going to tell you right now, the teams that do the best have a quality to them that is hard to achieve, and that is humility. Mm-hmm. I'm going to tell you right now, if you rock to a table and you think you're the biggest, best player around, and that's how you approach every single one of your games, you're going to get smashed so hard, and then you're going to blame dice at the end of it. Humility is the biggest quality factor in actually not only analyzing your own errors as a player, but allow you to reflect on other players, being able to take advice. That's what humility allows.
Yeah, a team is a collective, and some people walk into a team with a very big, let's say, ego, for lack of a better word, and you eat your humble pie pretty quick, especially when you have 4 other or 7 other people telling you that what you might perceive as this is the way I should do it and this is the best.
Right.
They might just let you do it and then you learn the hard way, or you collectively together create each list, or it's good to bounce ideas off like-minded people, and it really brings you back down, and especially at the same time where you go, oh, I'm going to go into that matchup and I'm going to smash it.
Yeah.
And you come back with a big donut, and you're like, what happened? And I swear, dice is like, I hate that excuse, but everyone uses dice. The dice were bad. Blah, 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 blah. It was nothing I did. The dice, only the dice. It helps you get into perspective, like when you get back to the group of guys, like what happened, and you tell them. And sometimes if it was singles, nobody cares in the sense of like they just want to make sure you're feeling better, so they'll just tell you whatever you want. But in a team, you explain something like, oh, how come you did this or this and that? You guys talk to each other, and it's not in a negative way. You're a group of friends, and you want to make sure everybody gets better and
that's
be better.
The most healthy.
It's the most healthy way
of a team. Yes,
yeah.
But I'm going to tell you right now, I've been privy to World Team's back conversation where they're talking about there's a Maltese team and the Maltese don't know what they're doing, and then they go up to Worlds, and then the Malta smashes the crap out of them.
Mm-hmm.
And what was the issue? Were they bad players? No, they're not bad players. They've all won events, GTs, and everything like that. So what's the difference? It literally was just a complete lack of humility.
Yeah.
There was arrogance entering the pairing system, arrogance about where they stood, arrogance about where the other team stood, and they were dismissive. So instead of looking at it critically, they didn't look at it at all. Because why? Oh, it's just this team. They don't know what they're doing.
And like, at least for the most part, from what I've seen, when that happens.
Sorry, Malta, I'm not picking on you, by the way.
Malta
I hope your team kicks butt. I don't know if there is a Maltese team, but if there was.
Portugal's team, they did terrible. I'll say it right now. I saw it every year. Portuguese, it's fine.
It's tough. How many players in Portugal?
Small country.
Yeah.
I didn't even know they had Warhammer in Portugal. To be fair. I didn't know. Anyway.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's just like in singles, you should never underestimate anybody.
No.
And, sure, way back when these are the super armies and they're the super armies and you play against not one of those, I wouldn't say you should go to every game. You can feel confident in yourself in beating them because I have the best and you don't have it.
Right.
But to think that the player might not be the best just because of what they took is very risky, because a couple years ago, if I didn't know who Ridvan was and I saw he's playing Dark Elder, I'm like, they suck. And I'm playing whatever it is that was good at the time.
Who uses bombers?
Right? And then I get to that table, I promise you within the first 2 turns, you're really going to know that it's about to hurt. Because you'll see something, you're like, what are you doing? And then you get 0, and you're like, oh, that's what you're doing. So you learn the hard way. And it's a lesson that you learn very quickly, especially in teams, because while, yes, in singles, you lose, that's on you, who cares? In teams, while nobody's going to blame you for letting a team down, which they should never do that, you don't want to feel that way, right? So if you can check your ego outside the door and just play as a collective, as a team, and go with that mentality, and you should go with the mentality of every team you're going to play is the best. If you smash them, that's cool. Maybe next time you won't. And that's what I meant by this time is getting scary, is some of the teams that maybe I perceived as maybe not as good as our team. I like to think our team is the best, but not as good.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
That's why they came in 5th.
Yes.
Yeah.
We like to be humble. Okay? First is not good enough. We don't want first.
They don't want the limelight.
Why do we want that?
Too hot.
Yeah, we're way too good. No, I want to. We'll win. We'll win. We can't win our own event. Okay, that's the rules. Okay, win some other event. Anyway, you come to the next event or the next time, and maybe you have a different group of guys. Who knows? But you come with the lessons that you learned from before.
Yeah.
And
you hope.
You'd hope, right? Yeah. And what's crazy is, let's say our team, for example, we view it as like every team is going to be good, and we've seen it. That's how we're going to play it, and we know which teams might be a little bit perceived as even better, and we know what to bring to those. Especially if you know the players on there and you've played them before. Our community is very close knit in the sense of like we all talk, we all hang out, we all play, so we kind of know each other. But for me, even if you're the first place team, you coming to the next event, like everyone's gunning for the spot that you have, right?
Right.
So to me personally, I believe, and I know they do, that the teams that usually win, they look down and they're like, everyone's gunning for us. We got to treat everybody like they're the top honchos. And right now, I feel like almost any team can get to that level, because the skill ceiling for me, at least in Warhammer, is everyone's approaching that same ceiling in terms of understanding the game and whatnot. It all just comes down to very minute things in like, decision paralysis. Some people suck at that.
Yeah.
Just the minute things of the game. Like, that's where, when you were saying faction specialists, like Ridvan has played so much and understands his army so well that he knows this into this, not a good idea. I've done this many times. While somebody else has never experienced a situation will make that mistake.
Yeah.
It's normal.
Dustin,
the same way with Gene Circle. I played a lot of Gene Circle players before, and I was like, this army stinks.
he played that army when it stunk.
And then steamrolled.
Yeah,
through
and then
people.
just smashed people through it simply because of player skill, knowledge. He's played it backwards and forwards. He's played it in the down times. He's played it in the up times.
Sure.
It doesn't matter. Like he's a guy that you were telling me a story. He's like, "Hey Dustin," you go, "Yeah, we need at least 2 more points." I was like, "Okay."
Oh, it was,
and then
yeah.
he'll get
We did to him all the time. It was terrible. We just tell him we need more. He's like, oh, okay, fine.
Okay, fine.
Like, why did you just do that from the beginning?
because he was playing different.
Yeah, no one's ever done that to me. It's like,
conservative.
we need you to push. I'm like, I'm pushed. I'm being pushed. Not.
All right. Okay, we're going to close this up because we're going to ramble on forever. But it is important to note one more thing. The concept of dice. It's been said many times on many channels, but it's worthwhile saying it again. If your takeaway from a game is that you rolled poorly, you've done no service to yourself.
Yeah.
None whatsoever. And what are you saying, Lionel? Are you saying that dice can't affect games? Of course they can affect games. Have I lost games based on dice? Yeah. But here's the thing. Could I have stacked the odds in my favor? What could I have done positionally? So what I mean by that is, what are the things I could control to mitigate the dice? And maybe I could have put this in a better position. I could have projected a little bit more into the future and go, yeah, you know what? I knew there was that mission, that secondary that was still in the deck. I should have positioned without it. Could have easily have done that and covered my bases. And that's what I mean. Because why? Because dice will roll badly. Dice will roll well. You can't count on either. Yeah. All you could do is play odds. This is why it's better to look at miniature games as not competitive, although we're talking about competitive, as not competitive, and more to look at it as gambling. So if you viewed it as a poker player, you start breaking down odds. Because you know what? 90% of the time, this hand wins. All in. And the guy has that 10% of the time where you lose. Yeah. That was still the right move. Because 90% of the time, you call the bet.
Yeah.
That was still the right move. If the guy has it, the guy has it.
If you can walk away from a game at the end of it, at least in my opinion, this is what I do. If I walk away from a game that I lost, and I look at it as I lost because of bad decisions I made, and to me, dice is not an excuse.
Yeah.
If it ever comes down to a dice roll to win the game, you've made several bad decisions that have caused you to get to that point.
Correct. When you're Hail Marying, and you're like, oh man, things have gone so bad that I need this die roll, and it fails, it's not the die roll.
Yeah, and thematically, and like, it's really exciting when you make that crazy thing and lose the game. Sure, you look like a god. Cool. But in essence, like, if you don't make it, then you're like, oh, I just lost. Yeah. The way I look at it is, if I can walk away from a game knowing that I just made a few positional decisions, target priority, whatever, and excluding dice, and that's why I lost, I can fix that.
Yeah.
If I lost because my opponent did all those things, went all in, and he's like, I just need to roll this 12, and he rolled a 12, I can't sit there going like, I did terrible. No, it's a gamble. He got lucky and did that. Could I have maybe stopped that from happening?
Maybe put it out of, like for instance, make a 12-inch charge. Maybe if I just was like 1 inch further back and knocked it out of even the probability of him rolling, but I went a little too far in, and now that there was a chance that person could crawl back into the game.
So some things you can't sit there and be like, oh, I could. What could you have done to make him not roll all sixes? Nothing. Nothing you could have done.
Yeah.
It was just, it happened, right? And you just have to eat it at that point, right?
Yeah.
There's some games I've had no business winning, right? And you can chalk it up to luck. But you know what? There's been games where you also have no business losing, I guess you could say it that way. But
which is why I wholeheartedly believe this. Yeah. Miniature games are not competitive games. They're not competitive games.
Yeah, it's
they are gambling games, which makes it absolutely thrilling, and the ones that do extremely well, right? The guys want to control those variables, and they'll pick armies that fit within their risk threshold. Yeah. So you got our favorite android, Devin.
Yes.
Right? Low risk all the time. Yeah. Hard probabilities, odds of me performing whatever the action is 80% of the time. And that's where he operates.
Does good.
Yeah. And then you got others who just like grab the bull by the horns and go, woo!
That's every orc player. Every single one.
I'm an orc.
It's true. If you wah out loud,
terrible
you play like that.
Yeah, I do.
Never blame dice.
Never.
Ever.
What? Never.
Well, how many dice are you going to blame? All of them? That's one thing about the team where when you're creating your team, you always have different personalities that you add onto the team.
Yeah.
And that's where the camaraderie from it comes from, where you have like the wild card, you have the very even-keeled person, you have the very confident person, you have the person that's like, I just play only this army and whatever.
Yeah.
And you collectively just want to get a group of, to me personally, I got a group of people that I like playing with, and that to me is already, that's where I want to be. We win, that's even better.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, if I can go to dinner with all 8 of you, or 9, or however many we are, and have a good time even outside of Warhammer, to me that is invaluable, right? And that's why we go to all these events far and wide.
I think that's a great way to end this. Yeah. Anything else we could talk about?
I could talk forever about
I
games.
know. We don't want this to be too long. All right, folks, if you made it this far, thank you so much for joining us today. This is a pre-recording. We're approaching our Thanksgiving here in Canada, or at least in Ontario. I think everyone in Canada has the same Thanksgiving, though.
I don't know.
I'm pretty sure everyone has the same
pretty sure.
Thanksgiving. So happy Thanksgiving if you're in Canada. And then in the States, I guess they're going to be having their Thanksgiving in the next little bit.
November? Why do I think it's November?
Yeah, I think it is.
Yeah.
Black Friday and all that.
I don't know.
That's when that happens.
I have no idea.
All right, our lack of knowledge. But the point is, if you see this and you're American, happy Thanksgiving too. If you like this kind of content, we don't normally do a lot of editorializing, but we do it occasionally. If you like this, hit that subscribe button. We really would super appreciate it. We're a brand spanking new channel. We've only been doing this for roughly 12 weeks, give or take.
Something like that.
And it would be super great to get the channel out there. So please hit that subscribe, maybe flash us a thumbs up, hit that notification bell, do all those algorithm lovely things. But with that, I want to thank my man, Diogo, for coming out on stream.
Anytime.
And I want to thank you for joining us. Again, good night.